Everything is getting more expensive. Inflation is the highest it's been for 40 years. It's 9.4%, and the Bank of England expects it to reach 13% later this year. That means that if your wages are the same as a year ago, you're 9.4% poorer, and it's going to get worse. Now, in response, workers are being told wages shouldn't go up by the same amount as inflation, as that will make a bad problem worse. In other words, you need to get poorer for now, although for precisely how long is never made clear, so inflation can fall. And thinking you shouldn't get poorer, that you don't deserve to get poorer, well, that's short-sighted and downright greedy. Just ask former Conservative MP Anne Widdecombe.
Workers' pay rises cannot keep up with inflation if you're not to have a wage price spiral. Well, you know that. It's got to be below inflation.
That's absolute rubbish. What's caused inflation is the shock of the supply chains from the global health emergency and rampant profits. 73% profits are up since 2019. Pay at the top is going through the roof.
That. What I'm
no
saying
one's worried about pay at the top, Anne.
You cannot match inflation with pay. I've just explained, because then you get into the wage price spiral. Then you get into the wage price spiral.
But people at the top are all right. Their profits can carry on going through the roof.
But while tens of millions of workers are told to show restraint, there's one group nobody mentions as prices rocket. Their behaviour hurts everyone but themselves, and their greed has immensely damaging consequences. Yet nobody in establishment media or politics says it. I'm talking about landlords, a tiny group of people who are increasingly out of control. Now, according to property website Rightmove, the average advertised rent outside London is 11.8% higher than a year ago. In the capital, things are, predictably, even worse. Their rents are up 15.8% in 1 year, the highest increase ever for any region, according to the website. In London, the average rental property now stands at more than £2,250 a month. That isn't the worst of it, by the way. Over the last year, 3 seaside towns, Weymouth and Dorset, Torquay and Devon and Margate, saw rents rise 19%, 18% and 16.9%. In Liverpool, rents are up 19.4%. In Manchester, and this is incredible, average rents have increased by 23.4% in a single year. Now, if you live in any of those places, go and ask your boss if they think it's reasonable for you to get a 20% pay rise to keep up. They'll probably laugh, maybe tell you that's not how it works. But then, how are you expected to pay for rent if you aren't earning more? Work more hours? Start using a food bank? Tell the kids they don't get new clothes anymore? Maybe all of the above. But guess what? It still won't be enough. Now, these are some of the worst examples, but runaway rents are a national problem. It's the epidemic that legacy media and Westminster barely mention. In Wales, rents are up 15%. In the southwest, 13.7%. Even where they've increased the least, in the East Midlands, rents are 10.3% higher than a year ago. Nobody's left out. So it's likely that if you rent, you're paying at least 10% more than last year, probably a lot more. That's higher than the basic rate of inflation, which, as I've said, is at a 40-year high, with the measure we use for inflation, CPI, not including housing costs. Strange, given housing is people's single biggest expense, isn't it? So why do we use CPI? Well, because the government knows it looks better for them. Some might say they're even cooking the books. If you rent, you already know inflation is well above 9.4% already. You don't need anyone to tell you otherwise. In fact, RPI, which includes mortgage costs, is 11.8%. It's predicted to hit 18%. But we don't use that anymore, although we did for much of the 20th century, because I guess it's just too accurate. And accuracy, well, that's bad PR. It's all government cares about these days. But here's the really remarkable thing, given all of that. While workers are being told to not ask for wage rises, nobody in politics or the media is saying that to landlords. Rents can go up by 15%, and the response appears to be, and that's the market, suck it up. If you can't afford to rent somewhere, then move. Get on your bike. But if you want a wage increase far below that of 9% or even 7%, how dare you? Don't you know you're destroying the economy? Show some responsibility. Well, don't landlords need to show responsibility? How come they can ask for more money, so much more money, but workers can't? You see, we give those causing the problem, who are rich and getting richer, a free pass, while criticising those who simply don't want to get poorer. How bad of them. We want inflation to fall, apparently, and yet the thing that swallows the bulk of people's earnings is going up, and the political class, well, they don't say a thing. You have to ask why. Why so much howling when trade unions ask for more money for their members, but silence, and it is silence, when landlords impose higher rents? With workers threatening strike action, at least that's millions of people trying to protect their living standards. With landlords, meanwhile, we're talking about 3% of the country, 3%, holding millions to ransom. So what's going on? Well, things start to make a little more sense when you grasp how many politicians are, you guessed it, landlords. It's around a quarter for the Conservative Party. That includes Boris Johnson, by the way, who started renting his cottage in Oxfordshire last year. Back then, it was reportedly advertised for a measly £4,250 a month. Maybe it's gone up since then, just to keep up with inflation. Jacob Rees-Mogg, meanwhile, earns rental income from a farmhouse and other buildings in Somerset, as well as London, and those two aren't alone. Other Conservative landlords include Sajid Javid, Nadhim Zahawi, Jeremy Hunt, Suella Braverman, James Cleverly, Ben Wallace. Paul Howell, however, takes the crown as the worst Tory MP. He's the Conservative MP for Sedgefield. He has 16 properties. I bet Mr. Howell is really unhappy about rents rising so much. I'm sure he's working overtime to solve the housing crisis. Don't like the Tories? Well, there's always Labour, isn't there? But while it's true that far fewer Labour MPs are landlords, and that's a good thing, even some people on their side, specifically party grandees, well, they want a pro-landlord consensus. It's easy to see why. After all, the Blairs own not one, but two property companies. Cherie Blair, remember her, owns dozens of single-room buy-to-lets in Greater Manchester with her son. Quite why she needs to let out bedsits is unclear, given the Blairs own two £10 million homes, and Tony and Cherie are worth more than £50 million. Some people can never have enough, I suppose. We used to call that greed. Public figures were even criticised for it, unfashionable now in the media, of course, primarily because a lot of them are in on it. But Blair doesn't matter anymore, right? Well, not quite. Keir Starmer is openly taking advice from the former Prime Minister, and he's close to Peter Mandelson, who himself owns a £10 million London home. Simply put, it's not in the political DNA of New Labour to criticise landlords. We know that because buy-to-let mortgages increased 30-fold between 1997 and 2007, 30-fold. This model of housing was central to the Blair boom. With that wing of the Labour Party in control again, which it is, don't expect strong criticism of landlords. It would be like Mick Lynch condemning trade unions or Boris Johnson attacking the City of London. It's not going to happen. While just 3% of the British public are landlords, that rises to 27% among MPs appointed as ministers or whips just last year. That means they were 9 times more likely to be landlords than a regular member of the public. Hardly representative, is it? So the political class either doesn't care about renters or are actual landlords themselves. That certainly explains why they don't seem very interested in focusing on all of this. Now imagine if mortgages increased by 15% in a year. Imagine how it would be reported and how politicians would act in response. Would it be different to what's happening with renters and landlords? You bet. Would the BBC, Sky News and national press go into a meltdown? Absolutely. Understatement of the century, by the way. Pundits would be saying it's time to nationalise the banks. Richard Madley would be on GMB at 7 a.m. saying, call in the army. Why? Because the presenters, columnists, editors and producers, they would be affected. It would be a national crisis. They would talk about it at their dinner parties, demanding it be treated as such, a scandal. And those responsible would be public enemy number one. James O'Brien would be having aneurysms on air every day. We'd have rolling news coverage on the BBC. There'd be panorama exposés. And in terms of inflationary pressures, the banks would be roundly condemned. But nobody's doing that for renters and landlords because people who rent, well, they're generally not part of the Westminster Club or the media class. The truth is the establishment aren't serious about dealing with inflation if it means hitting the rich and their profits. We know that because profit is responsible for around 60% of the inflation we already have, and the Bank of England, politicians and pundits are blaming workers. That's why they don't mention landlords. So the next time someone whines about workers asking for too much simply because they don't want to get poorer, mention landlords. How come they can push prices up far more than any trade union ever will and well above inflation, and yet that isn't a problem?